I want to apologize for not having been around for the last 2 weeks. The easiest thing that I could say is that, well, first off, I was traveling a bit, and as a result of traveling, I ended up getting pretty sick, and I'm still somewhat sick. So occasionally, if you hear me laugh and it sounds very labored, it's because I still got a lot of phlegm inside my chest. That and school, work, just basically being piled on top of a lot of things. So, sorry, I wasn't able to post anything, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to stop. I still want to talk about some weird news, some drama, and most importantly, video games. Because video games is something that I love. I love playing games, and I love reading about video game news because there are games that I'm interested in that are coming out or that need to be updated that I want to read and see what the progress is on that, what's new, what bad things are happening, because according to my channel, a lot of people end up liking when I start talking about some of the drama. So why don't we talk about some of the drama? One of the things I love talking about is layoffs, and as you can tell from most recent news, Private Division is unfortunately potentially closing its doors if it doesn't get sold. And as a result, one of the developing studios underneath them, Intercept Games. Why am I talking about this as of right now? Because Intercept Games makes a game that I personally love, at least in terms of the franchise, Kerbal Space Program. Now, Kerbal Space Program 2, being the one that's under the gun, is potentially going to be reaching some sort of fate, depending on what happens, right? But it's not just Private Divisions, it's not just Intercept Games. There are other gaming studios that are also closing the doors or potentially letting people out. As of recent, Behavior is laying off 95 employees. We'll round that up to 100 because it does say up to, potentially more. And then Avalanche, the people responsible for Just Cause, is laying off 50 employees and closing 2 of their offices in Montreal and New York. So this gaming industry bubble is bursting, and it's been bursting at least as of the start of 2024. 2023 was a pretty bad year in terms of video games. Yes, we had some great exceptions like Baldur's Gate 3, but there were a ton of stinkers across the board in terms of these big gaming studios, from Microsoft, Ubisoft, EA. A lot of crap came out of them. And some individual indie game developers definitely released some stinkers, but a lot of these big guys that came out swinging in the video game industry struck out on a lot of their exclusives, needless to say. And as a result, in 2024, a lot of these studios have been closing their doors or laying off hundreds of people. EA laying off tons of people. Microsoft closing the doors on developing studios, and even the doors of developing studios that gave successful award-winning games. I talked about it in a previous video, so if you want to check that out, go and check that out. But it's not over. Clearly, Private Division's a publishing studio closing its doors if it doesn't get sold, and then Intercept Games as a result too. Now, why am I talking about this now? Because this is where we start looking at what we have in terms of video games and seeing that potential fate of what exactly is going on and what is eventually the future of these games that may have if these studios close. So I want to talk about Intercept because Intercept Games definitely has a problem for me, because Kerbal Space Program 2 came out very rocky. It did not compare to the original game, and the original game is the reason why that I love this franchise and consider it a franchise, because it does have a sequel. The original game came out from a developing studio, Squad. Didn't have any really big publishers behind it. It managed to create a fantastic game well before it went gold. It had beta versions, it had demos, it was growing, but at the end of the day, the game was functional and had a lot of things to do beyond just leaving your planet and exploring the moon. Even when it was just the moon, the game still had a lot of fun because the physics behind it weren't atrocious, unlike in the second game. Granted, a lot of what the coding was in the original game, according to from some people that I've seen, is spaghetti code. So the new developers couldn't really work with it to try and make a sequel. So they essentially had to make their own version from the ground up. From what I'm aware, I could be wrong. But the original game had so much potential that even NASA wanted to put their name on it by creating scenario missions of messing around with asteroids and trying to bring them to Earth. And the fact that you have a government organization regarding spacefaring and everything to do with space in general, putting their name on, hey, we love this video game and we think it's a great way to get people into knowing what it's like in rocket science and spacefaring and the physics behind it. Oh, come on. That game was amazing. This game came out while I was still in high school, and I loved it. My group of nerd friends loved it. We started making a whole thing about, like, I was the United States, and one guy was the USSR, the other guy was China, and we were having our own little space, like, races to try and plant flags on all the different planets within that system. We had so much fun that we got together for our high school professor that was teaching us engineering, because we had an engineering class at the time. At this time, we were learning about aerospace, that when it came time to when we were learning about orbital mechanics, we wanted to use this game as an example. And he thought, oh, it's just a video game, blah, 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 blah. But then came around and said, hey, I'm going to make an assignment about this game. I want you guys to teach these aspects. I will teach everything about all the orbital mechanics and all that. I want you to teach the rest of the class this game, because I think it's a fun way to get people into learning about rocket science. How cool is that? That you are a teenager in high school and you manage to convince your professor to put a video game into their curriculum to teach everybody about orbital mechanics. That's how much this game means to me. That it's got a near and dear place to my heart. I love this game. And when they came out saying that there was going to be a Kerbal Space Program 2, and they were teasing things like being able to build colonies, exploring other solar systems, and multiplayer, which is something that hasn't been done natively in Kerbal Space Program, the original one, and you have to do it through mods, and the mods don't even do it all that well, blew my mind. I wanted to get this game, and I do have this game, for that potential. But when the game came out, it just freaking sucked. It was not even a mirror image of what the original game was. This game was buggy. This game did not function well. This game barely had anything that the original had. It had half of the available tools to use, less than half maybe, than what the original game had. The only thing that this game had was a fresh coat of paint. And a lot of people were mad. This is an early access game. Why are you charging this much? This game barely even runs. And they fixed it over time. But I want to say, as of right now, it still isn't a one-to-one with the original. They still have a lot of work to do in order to get to the steps that they promised. Their roadmap isn't even an accurate depiction of what it's supposed to be. They're barely scraping along. So no wonder that they're under the gun with Intercept Studios. No wonder Private Divisions is under the gun, because a lot of the stuff that they're funding, other than Outer Worlds, hasn't been performing. And it sucks, because a game like Kerbal Space Program doesn't deserve to be under the gun. But because of this, that Take-Two is deciding, hey, like, I'm going to close your doors unless if I can't sell you. And maybe because Private Divisions or Take-Two, whoever owns the rights to Kerbal Space Program, they might sell it to someone else. If they can't sell it, it's just going to go. And then whatever version we have of Kerbal Space Program 2 is going to be it. Because they're not going to be able to expand upon it, because they're not going to have people to pay to keep writing code and making updates for this game. And then we'll be stuck with whatever we have. And that's just the future of what these games are going to be. Same thing with, like, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. Oh, come on. That game sucks. Everybody knows that game sucks. And day by day, the player count is going lower and lower. Do you think they're ever going to finish that game? If they manage to keep people on that game, to keep pumping out content, good content, not microtransaction content, good content, to keep the few hundred people that are still playing this game wanting to play this game, do you think they're going to pay people money to keep investing in time to build this game? No, that game is going to be dead to them. No one else is going to be buying the game unless they come out with something huge and revolutionary that completely changes the entire mentality of what Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League is supposed to be. But that game eventually will die. And then whatever version of that game is left when nobody's working on it will be that way forever, unless if they decide to release the assets like they did with Paragon, Epic Game Store, but I doubt that. Whatever they're left with is going to be that way, and it's going to be an unfinished game, just as what potentially may happen to Kerbal Space Program 2, because this bubble in the gaming industry has grown so big and is now popping, and we're seeing it. People are losing their jobs. People are losing their jobs not just spread out, but in specific sections. Whether if it's a game you love or a game you never heard of or a game that was going to come out but is no longer. This is happening, and it may happen throughout the rest of the year. It may happen for a while because they're trying to wring out whatever bloat that they took on during COVID. That's just the way it is. And unfortunately, we're going to be seeing this explosion of people losing their jobs in the gaming industry because the big gaming companies who spent hundreds of millions of dollars of producing crap is realizing they're throwing their money away. And who are they taking it out on? The people who are making the games, the people who are trying to sell their games, rather than trying to make something worthwhile. That's just the way it is. That's the unfortunate reality. I'm back. I apologize for leaving, even though I'm going to be leaving again for another 2 weeks because of work. But I'm going to try and produce whatever videos I can before then. I'll catch you guys later. If you like this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want more stuff like this. What do you think about everything going on? Is the gaming industry collapsing? I know that this is the year of the indie developer. So that's just the way it is. Maybe that's what's going to be our saving grace. And hopefully we go back to the times of 2005 to 2010 where games were actually good and not just bloatware on my hard drive. Well, yeah, that's it for me. I'll catch all y'all later. Peace.